Welcome back to Decentralounge, brought to you by GlobalStake, your truly decentralized SOC 2 Type 2 certified institutional bare metal blockchain infrastructure provider. I'm your host, Ryan Hazinski, head of protocol partnerships, along with my co-host, Wyatt Clancy, our VP of growth. Today, we're joined by Keone Hon, co-founder and general manager of the Mainnet Foundation, the organization supporting the development and decentralization of the Mainnet blockchain protocol. Keone comes from a deeply technical background in high-performance systems. Before entering crypto, he spent nearly a decade at Jump Trading, where he led a high-frequency trading team focused on low-latency system design, machine learning-driven price forecasting, and performance optimization at the cutting edge of financial markets. He later brought that expertise into crypto at Jump Crypto before co-founding the team that would go on to build Mainnet, a high-performance Layer 1 blockchain designed to dramatically increase throughput while maintaining full compatibility with the Ethereum virtual machine. Mainnet is built around a parallelized EVM architecture capable of processing over 10,000 transactions per second with sub-second finality, aiming to give developers the best of both worlds, the performance needed for global scale applications while preserving the portability of the existing Ethereum ecosystem. Today, we'll talk about Keone's path from high-frequency trading into blockchain infrastructure, what lessons from traditional financial systems can be applied to decentralized networks, and why performance and parallelization are becoming some of the most important frontiers in blockchain design. Keone, welcome to Decentralounge. Thanks so much for taking the time to be here with us today. Why don't we just start off with your backstory, which is super fascinating. You are, double degree earning from MIT, doing all these amazing things before you got into this world. So would love to just dig into your backstory and hear more about how that got you to here today.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Great to be here. It's an exciting time in crypto, and there's a lot going on in the Mainnet ecosystem. So thank you for having me.
No, like I said, it's awesome to have you here. And why don't we just start off with more of your backstory about, maybe what you learned, kind of how you took your MIT degrees into sort of this high frequency trading world, and just kind of get us the story to where we get to today.
For sure. I graduated from MIT in 2011 and immediately went into the world of high frequency trading. I guess for background there, trading systems or exchanges became fully electronic and enabled electronic access right at the turn of the millennium, like 1999, 2000. That was when most well-known HFT firms were actually founded all around that same time, because that was when the exchanges opened up to automation. And when I joined in 2011, the industry was, I guess, at kind of like a mid stage. Things were getting a lot more efficient, and but there was still a pretty nascent stage, and the financial crisis that just happened 2008 2009. World was a pretty different place. Spent about 10 years in HFT. The work was really around using statistics and machine learning to make really frequent price predictions about what was going to happen in markets where there is a ton of data coming in. Every order update on every order book is a new packet coming back from the exchange. And our job as high frequency traders was to build systems that could organize all that information and reduce this really highly dimensional space into a lower dimensional space where it's possible to build machine learning models over that subset of features that have been manually generated in order to build a price prediction and then go trade based on that. And I think it's kind of interesting because I think in the crypto space, people have a relatively medium to positive impression of high frequency trading. But I think among the general public, the perception is extremely negative. And so it's interesting being in a space where people don't immediately like sort of tar and feather you and chase you out of town, and think that the experience is interesting. But I would say the general public perception of HFT is very negative because they think that it's all about extraction and front running and like all of these other claims. But in reality, HFT is just a very data-driven discipline that involves building sustainable businesses that indeed over time can generate very, very, very small profits, very small amounts of edge on any given trade on average, but it's the result of averaging over hundreds of thousands or millions of trades per day across many different markets, across many different moments in time that result in generating profit, same as any other business, while actually narrowing spreads and making markets more efficient and causing retail traders to, when they interact with a market, they just automatically have really low slippage and get really tight quotes and pay very little for the trades relative to what existed before, which was manually quoted stocks that were trading on quarters rather than pennies, and really wide spreads and really high transaction costs. HFT basically moved that world from high transaction cost to much lower transaction cost, thus enabling greater capital efficiency and better returns for long-term investors, and ultimately better, more efficient capital markets that give companies better access to capital. So that was kind of the story that we would try to communicate as high frequency traders to the rest of the world. No one really believed us. Everyone thought that we were evil and just trying to like front run, but at the end of the day, it was just like this data-driven discipline of very, very small amounts of edge and very small profit margins to deliver a service liquidity to end users. So did that for a number of years, and then started to move into the crypto space, still in HFT. So crypto HFT, spent some time in that, and then fully made the jump to full-time crypto in 2022.
My question was, traditional finance HFT going to the crypto side. And then from there, how did you, get involved and think about, creating Monad, and how did you find, your co-founders and that sort of thing?
Yeah. So like I said, I entered the quant trading space in 2011 and was just focused on traditional markets for like 8 or 9 years. And then in 2020, started to spend more time in crypto HFT. In 2021, our trading team merged into the crypto trading team, the crypto team at Jump Trading, and ended up having a broader set of focuses. One of the things we were really focused on was the early Solana DeFi ecosystem. And so looking at different protocols, participating in different protocols, and helping the Solana DeFi ecosystem to grow. This is 2021. And at the time, it's really interesting to look back on that time, because Solana was clearly a project, and Solana Labs and other contributors were clearly teams that cared a lot about the details. They cared a lot about building a really efficient system, and were willing to not take shortcuts to deliver a system that was really performant. And then the downstream effect of that was that people realized that they could mint NFTs on Solana much more efficiently. They could, instead of paying insanely high gas fees like they were on Ethereum, they could pay almost zero gas fees on Solana. And so we saw this growing tide of people who cared much more about efficiency and cost, and understood that the result of efficiency and reducing costs would be ultimately more benefits for end users and better capital efficiency, better, more frequent money movement, and just all of the benefits that kind of come from that. We saw that in 2021. But at the same time, Solana was still in a very early stage. There were a lot of inefficiencies in Solana's system as well, even though it was more efficient than what had come before. And Ethereum was even more extreme in terms of being built without the focus on systems engineering that we were used to in our building of high frequency trading systems.
So is that ultimately what led to sort of a lot of the architectural designs of Monad? Because you obviously want to capture, the holy grail is sort of the liquidity, and you get that mostly in EVM systems, because to this day, Ethereum, of course, has the vast majority of DeFi liquidity, but being in an EVM system, it's so portable and you can easily bridge from one to the next. So maybe dig into a little bit of the technical decisions and why Monad was constructed the way that it is as this sort of parallelized, very high throughput sub-second finality chain.
Yeah, the EVM is a really powerful standard. I think people often just make assumptions about the standard and the fundamental properties of it because of the evidence that they see. But the reality is that EVM is a really reasonable bytecode standard that has a great set of front-end languages, Solidity, Viper, and others that generate this bytecode. There's a ton of tooling. There's a ton of applied cryptography research that's being done in the context of EVM. So almost everything is there. It's just the systems that are built around it are not optimized, and they're not designed in the way that other computer systems that need to be very efficient are. And it really comes down to resource management when processing blockchain transactions and running an entire globally distributed L1 network, there are various resources that impose different constraints on the system, those mainly being network bandwidth, CPU time, state access bandwidth, which is typically disk access, and state growth. And those four variables are priced in the form of gas, and these basically, when a transaction is submitted, it uses a certain amount of each of those resources and is charged a certain amount for each of those. But right now, the assumptions are that there's very little of each of those resources because the systems are not designed to optimally use those resources. So Monad is really a new effort to freshly build up a blockchain system from scratch that does a lot more parallel processing and a lot more pipelining so they can utilize all of the resources on each of the nodes in the system far more efficiently than before. And I think everyone intuitively understands the benefits of parallel processing for raising throughput. I would just add also that in computer systems, most systems are pipelined. So they follow the intuitive thing that you do whenever you're doing laundry, which is that if you have multiple loads of laundry to do, you would put the first load of laundry in the washer, and then after that's done, you would move it to the dryer and put the second load of laundry in the washer and run these steps in stages in parallel, rather than doing the naive thing of just putting all the first load of laundry into the washer, then moving it to the dryer, then folding it before starting on the second one. And it's this sort of pattern that appears frequently in most computer systems, but in several notable areas, and blockchain was not occurring. Like execution and consensus in most blockchain systems were run serially rather than in pipeline form. The actual communication of nodes talking to each other to come to global consensus in the past historically was mostly done serially rather than in a pipeline manner. And so by pipelining, you actually can massively condense the amount of work, the amount of time that's needed in order to do a bunch of work because of maintaining these multiple stages and running them in parallel.
How have you found going from an employee at a firm to co-founding your own project and running a business? How has that transition been, and I guess what are the ups and downs that you've gone through?
Yeah, I think running a entire business or running a larger effort inherently just puts more strains on the need to delegate well, to define roles and responsibilities really clearly, to define decision-making frameworks more clearly. I think at the end of the day, a lot of the principles are still the same. At Monad, we care a lot about doing things really well, having a high standard, and that has manifested in the system that we've built over the past 4 years. Like, it took a long time to build this system. It's not just a fork of like some other existing thing with some minor changes. It's a full rewrite from scratch. And that's takes a lot longer to do. It takes a lot longer to go to market, but it's because we think that that is something that will then be very lasting. We want to do things that create a lasting effect rather than just temporary, short-term hype and excitement. And I think that when leading in a startup, there's the opportunity to set that standard and just like infuse that throughout the rest of the team. But it's just inherently like to convey standards are about conveying culture, and conveying culture is about a lot of repetition, a lot of consistency, constantly being there, constantly just trying to help other people. And so it's about scaling culture rather than just, within a small HFT team of like 8 people, it's a lot easier to everyone's sitting in the same row. We're all constantly talking to each other, and that culture automatically transmits. Whereas in a broader global team of much more people, we need to more proactively, I need to more proactively try to spread the culture.
Well, I think that's something you've done expertly well, honestly, because I jokingly told you when I saw you in the elevator that one time about you kind of the Mana Discord experience was very frenetic. Like when I first joined there, trying to get us to potentially run a validator for you guys, I was like, man, this community is wild. And so I think you guys did a really, really good job, because so much of being part of crypto is cultivating community. And that's something that hats off to you guys, because I really feel you did a great job, with the whole cards leading up to the launch of the chain. For instance, I was not a first wave card, but I got a second wave card through a nomination of a friend. And so I think the way that you were able to expand that community and get people involved was really, really interesting. And then, just as almost a personal aside, I don't know if you saw Tarab from Move Industries, he actually said that he used his airdrop from Monad to actually feed families, like 13 families. And so like I think it speaks volumes about the kind of culture that you've created, Keone. And so hats off to you guys, to the entire team, because to do that well in our Web3 industry is really, really hard to do. So I want to just offer you some kudos for that. Thinking about just, you've now had a successful launch, the chain's running, obviously all of this really intense kind of thought process went into, trying to take that HFT experience and bring it on chain. What's next for Monad? Like, where do you see it going the rest of this year? What are you guys thinking about for the future? We're on the cusp of, having regulatory clarity here in the United States. And this, I think, is going to also open up our industry in a lot of ways. So, what's on the roadmap for this year and beyond for you and the rest of the team?
Yeah, and thank you for that shout out, by the way, before. It's really a team effort. It's incredible work being done by the entire team and the Monad community as well. Like it has to come from, many hands make the work light. In terms of what we're excited about going forward, I mean, it's really just the beginning. We have always seen mainnet as shipping the MVP of Monad that is just fully backward compatible with everything, really efficient, with really great tooling and integrations and developer support, so that's really easy for developers to build in the EVM. Our goal has always been for Monad to be the easiest place for developers to be really productive. And I think what we have right now on day one of mainnet accomplishes that. But it is just actually the beginning in terms of improvements to the EVM that our team would like to see, and that the developer community, I think, would like to see. So some new features in the direction of privacy, pre-trade privacy, fairer ordering for transactions, as well as improvements to DevX, both on the RPC interaction side, because right now we talk a lot about the protocol and the consensus mechanism and things like that. But what developers are also really affected by is the set of RPC methods and how annoying it is to get certain kinds of data, like just getting like the list of all the token transfers on that affect a particular account is quite challenging. And so there's a lot of good work on the DevX side that the team is working on as well. And then in addition to that, the ecosystem is really just getting started. We're at month 3 at this point of the Monad ecosystem existing. There's, right now the volumes and TVL and active wallets are still just getting started, but at the current state, we're seeing about $50 million of spot volume, $250 million of TVL, and some early stage Monad protocols just iterating rapidly and improving their product, talking to users, really refining to build really powerful tools for personal finance for everyone. I'm excited about just trying to grow crypto massively. I think that ultimately one of the really big value propositions for crypto is a universal asset layer where every person has access to many more opportunities, tools for personal finance when borrowing, to get the best possible rates sourced from a global pool of lenders rather than just their local bank lender that's probably charging them a much higher rate, for people to get opportunities to invest in more things or hold their net worth in stabler currencies that are not devaluing. And just in general, this effort requires the ecosystem, the crypto ecosystem, to grow substantially, to bring many more assets on chain and many more users on chain. So just at the start from the Monad perspective, but there's so much to do. And some of the initiatives that we are organizing, such as the Nitro Accelerator, announced about a month ago, that gives $500,000 to 15 teams building on any chain to accelerate their growth and to be in a set of really ambitious founders who are trying to ship rapidly and really grow the space. This is just one of several initiatives that we have on the ecosystem side to try to grow crypto substantially.
Well, everything you've built is massively impressive. Great. You have such a great resume. So interesting to pick through it, and a very unique resume at that as well. So for people that, want to keep following along with your progress and stay in touch, where should the viewers go?
People can check out Monad on Twitter. It's just MONAD on Twitter. Additionally, our docs.monad.xyz are a great place for developers to learn about the technology, the tooling, and just get guides to immediately get started on Monad mainnet.
Awesome. Well, we'll be sure to link all of those, Keone, in the podcast appearance on our YouTube for the video. For those who are watching, or if you're just listening in on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, thank you for being with us today for this incredible conversation with Keone. Keone, thank you for being here with us and giving us your time. This was really, really awesome to dive deep into Monad with you and learn a little bit more about your background. For everybody who's tuning in and watching Decentralounge, take care, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care, everybody.